All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I'm Jason Green. New rock and roll interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you got to make sure you subscribe to see that. But even though the title is Wasting Time, I don't want to waste too much time today. We got an amazing guest who I'm really looking forward to talk to. So just stick around in a minute. Janet Gardner from Vixen.
Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there to waste time with you.
And I should point out that Janet Gardner, formerly of Vixen, she's promoting a new record. It's called Synergy, and that's Gardner James, and we'll get to that and more. But let's welcome Janet Gardner right now.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, I'm glad you're here.
It's good to see you. Long time no see, right?
It's been a while, yeah. I think we first met on one of those Monsters of Rock cruises, and then occasionally we ran into each other at some cities. And what's funny is, so I read that you grew up in Bozeman, Montana. Is that true?
That is correct.
I didn't even know that was a place until we played one of those festivals.
Oh, Rockin' the Rivers or something.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really close to where I grew up.
And I remember thinking, who lives here? You know, it was,
I did.
You did, yeah. And so talk a little bit about how you got started playing music, you know, because you're a guitar player and a singer.
Yeah. My parents were both musicians. My mom was a pianist and my dad played the violin. So I played piano when I was younger and I wanted a guitar. So I whined and whined and whined until I finally got a guitar. And I started just playing acoustic just to sort of accompany myself as a singer. And it just sort of developed from there. I started getting into different talent shows and working with different people, writing some original songs. And then I moved to California, and then that's when I, met the girls from Vixen, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And, so I interview people almost every day about their careers, and there's a lot of similarities in with the bands. Usually it's, unfortunately, the business problems. But one of the things with Vixen is this was no overnight success. I mean, the earliest beginning of Vixen was 83. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's when I joined. Jan had it going for a little while before then, and I joined in 83, and then Roxy in 85, and then Cher shortly after that, 86 or something. And yeah, during those early times, we were road dogs. We played every imaginable dive bar in the United States. So yeah, it was definitely not an overnight success, but it was great. I mean, it was really fun. We had a great time, and we definitely got tight by doing that.
Yeah, and it works out. Do you find, I'm sure you get these same questions a lot, but as being a band that's all women, did you find that people are constantly mansplaining to you?
Well, I don't know. We didn't spend very much time, like no time at all, dwelling on that, on, what anybody thought or what advice people would give us. We just kind of did what we did and just kept moving forward.
Yeah, because for any band, even a band of men, sometimes when you're traveling and you're playing these venues, you get these local crews, and everyone thinks they're a genius. Every guy who knows how to turn on a monitor is suddenly an expert. And so I just feel like there's got to be people looking down and saying, "Oh, these women don't know what they're doing," especially before you're signed and on MTV.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of doubters and, skeptics at first. They'd be looking at us kind of like, oh, yeah, right, let's see. And by the end of the show, it was always, we won over most of the crowd, at least. There were some people who just didn't want to accept it, period. Yeah. But for the most part, they were like, hey, they were really good. Changed my mind about women being able to rock.
Well, and I think Vixen did that for a lot of people, because as far as a hard rock all-female band, there wasn't really anyone else doing that at the time, at least not on a big level that broke through like you guys did.
Well, at the time, I mean, there were former Runaways,
Right.
obviously at the top of their game. Joan Jett and Lita were out there killing it. So, it wasn't like we were out there alone.
Yeah.
There were other women, but yeah, I mean, wasn't a lot of all female bands at the time. Now there's
Yeah.
tons.
And not playing the kind of music that you guys are playing, go-go's and things like that. We're more of pop bands. And so you guys are competing with, the big rock bands that eventually you guys will tour with. So talk a little bit about your Self-Titled record comes out in 1988, but talk a little bit about the process of making that record. And then, of course, the producers who get involved with what you guys do.
Right. Well, we had gotten off the road. We had made a demo tape that garnered some interest, and we found management. Left Bank management started managing us, and so they were shopping. And of course, there was a lot of negative stuff about the fact we were all females, or they can't be a female hard rock band. Why don't you make them play country, and a bunch of stupid stuff. So we finally got signed by EMI. So we went in to make the record, and we were a great live band, but we had no studio experience, very little. We had recorded demos and stuff. So it was an adjustment for sure, because we just wanted to barrel through with tons of energy. But, there's a different level that you have to achieve in the studio. So I think it was kind of eye-opening for all of us, just to perfect and perfect and perfect and do it over and over and over until it can stand up to the kind of repeated listenings that albums have to have.
Yeah.
So it was laborious, and I have to say it wasn't the most fun that we had had. Mm-hmm. But, we got through it, and we made a great album. And then the next time around, for Rev It Up, it was easier. We had the experience. We knew what to expect. We knew more how to prepare with pre-production. So it was a lot more fun because we knew what we were doing. First album was pretty brutal. I would go home after like 8-9 hours of singing. I could barely talk. And it's hard work.
Did anyone try to convince you guys to bring in outside players to play on the record?
No. I'm trying to think. No.
Okay, yeah. Because, at that time you had guys like Beau Hill producing records, and you had bands like Warrant, where it was pretty common to have, other players brought in. So I can only imagine somebody telling you, "Oh, well, we'll just bring somebody in with these ladies." So that's good that didn't happen. But what about the outside songwriting? Because this record is loaded with outside songwriters. And then Edge of a Broken Heart, obviously the big single written by Richard Marx and Fee Waybill of the Tubes. I mean, amazing songwriters. But I'm wondering how that gets presented to you.
Well, we recorded a bunch more demos of our material. And in hindsight, I wish we would have fought a little bit more for some of our songs because they were good. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the stuff that was pushed upon us, oh, you need this and you need that, really didn't do that much for the album. It was just more of the same. And I thought that a lot of our stuff that we had was unique to us. So, we held our ground a little bit better on the next album. It was like, okay, we can do this. We don't need to do all that outside stuff. I mean, I have to say, Edge of Broken Heart and doing that with Richard Marx was a blessing. That was just awesome. It was a great song. He was fun to work with. He worked with us. It wasn't like just, here's a song. Right. And he was able to sort of capture us in his own song. So, I mean, that was great. And Jeff Paris is a great songwriter, and Crying and some of his material on there, they're great songs. So, I mean, it all worked out in the end. And I think it made us better writers and more determined to compete with the big songwriters. So, yeah, it's all a learning, life's a learning experience.
Well, and it's that double-edged sword. Sure, you would rather had your own songs out, written songs out there, but these songs become huge and really put you guys on the map and give you the chance to make that follow-up record where more of your songs are on there now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wish we would have fought for a couple more of our tunes on the first album, because I thought we had a couple songs that could have been as good as some of the stuff that's on there. Like I said, just more of the same. I thought we had a couple songs that could have made it more interesting, in my opinion. But no regrets. You know, like you said, it you know, put us on the map. It got us going. It got us some time to write after that album, after we toured for all those gazillion dates.
Yeah, and we should talk about that too, because it's some pretty amazing touring. Ozzy Osbourne, Scorpions, Bon Jovi, all separate tours, but these are huge. So tell me what that's like.
Well, our first arena tour actually was the Scorpions, and that was amazing. It was in Europe, and you know, thousands of people every night, and the lights would go down, and you'd hear the crowd roar, and that was just amazing to experience. I just every night was goosebumps. It never got old. It was always just a rush. And then I can't, you know, it was a long time ago.
Sure.
I can't remember what order we did all those tours, but yeah, we did. The Ozzy tour was totally amazing, and that was in the States with White Lion.
Right.
Had a great time. Got to know Ozzy a little bit. What an amazing guy he is. Interesting. And, you know, then Deep Purple. And I grew up with Deep Purple. It was a legendary band for me. And every night I would just stand behind one of them. I didn't even care which one, and just watch them play, and just in amazement of like, I can't believe I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
It was too amazing. And Bon Jovi, we didn't really tour with. We did a couple of shows. We did the Milton Keynes Festival in England with them. And then I think we did a show in Denver at Red Rocks with them, but that was only a couple
One-offs.
shows. And we did a little run with Kiss, and that, you know, they were another, like, when growing up, it was just like the shows were just so spectacular, and it was amazing to be opening for them.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. And it's happening so fast because you're also featured on that MTV Spring Break, you know, which is huge. At that time, MTV's still playing music. People are getting their music like that. And this is not just the Headbangers Ball. This is playing all day, you know. So things were moving fast for you.
Yeah, and I think stuff like that really helped our credibility, because it was obvious we were all playing live. There were no backing tracks. There was no backing tapes. There was nothing but us playing. And I think it was pretty obvious to everyone that, you know, we were a real band. It wasn't some cooked up, put together by a producer thing. So those shows were really important, and we knew it. You know, we really got our shit together for those.
Yeah, Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, no, another one that was that was tough though. We had flown in from across the country and really didn't get any sleep, and I was really nervous that I wouldn't be able to sing, but we pulled it off.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time, that was huge. I mean, you couldn't buy advertising like that to be on a major show.
I know. It was funny too, because I didn't realize it, but I was in a group called the Young Americans, like right after high school. And a lot of the people that worked with the Young Americans were working on the Arsenio Hall show.
How strange.
Yeah. So I walked in, I'm like, Serena? She's like, yeah, I heard you were coming. Yeah, I work here. Corky, you work here too? All the sound people and everything. I knew them all. So that was really cool.
It's a small world.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Now, before we go on to the next record, I got to ask, whose leg is this?
That's Jan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes people go, I have no idea. They took a picture.
Yeah, that's Jan's leg. I recognize the jacket.
How funny.
And the boots. Yeah, that's totally Jan.
So, okay. So you guys, we talked about it. You guys go out for that first record. You really push it like crazy. So now it's time to make Rev It Up. Were some of the songs that you wanted to get on the first record, did they end up on that second album?
No, we started over. We started fresh. Everybody just, we divided up into different, groups and different pairs and just wrote like crazy.
And I know that there was some issues between you guys with the other two bringing in more outside writers. And I think that was a little bit of an issue with the band at that point.
Well, we wanted to keep it in-house as much as possible. So, yeah, it was kind of like, well, as long as we were involved.
Say again.
As long as we were involved as much as possible with the songs, we were okay with it.
Yeah, and that happened. So who produced that record?
Randy Nicholas.
And did you find that was a better, because the first record has multiple producers. So was it an easier process the second time around?
Definitely. It definitely has more continuity. I think that record has, like I said, a lot more continuity. It makes more sense together. So, yeah, I think that was a really good thing that we had just one producer and, we did a lot of pre-production with him. We were really prepared to go in and make that record. And I think it shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some great songs here. I got to be honest, I was a little late to the Vixen party.
Come
I know.
on.
I'm sorry. It was one of those things. Maybe I thought I was too macho. Maybe I was one of those dumb guys.
Oh, no.
But
yeah.
It wasn't until many years later that I realized I was missing something. And then I went to see you guys on these cruises and things, and for people who don't know, bands play all day and all night. And sometimes it's more fun to see the bands that you didn't listen to as much. And you guys were still great. And then I realized, wow, these songs are really good. And I really kind of missed out on some great songs. And this record especially, there's really, catchy stuff. And I think that this was a tough time, though, because here you guys are, you got to follow up to a gold record. And so tell me, was there pressure at this point?
Well, I don't really think so. I think everybody tried to just sort of do what we do and make the best record possible without, really thinking about where we were in our career or whatever. We just kind of were determined to better ourselves. And, that's what we did. After it came out, of course, that's when we were in Europe touring with Deep Purple when the album came out. And of course, then the grunge thing kind of hit and things kind of started to peter out a little bit. And that was a terrible feeling. We weren't even in the country and we knew, our record wasn't doing as well as expected. So bummer.
Yeah, well, and so this is 1990 and you guys did tour on us from now. Now, who's on the cover of this record? Is that Jan again?
Yeah, that's Jan's hair sticking out of the.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Jan, I should point out, so the controversy at this point is that you guys wanted to bring in another guitar player. And my question is, because you're a guitar player also and play guitar in the band on stage also, is that what was the idea? Were you guys going to have 3 guitar players?
No, well, when I first joined the band, it was 2 guitar players.
Okay.
And me. There was no keyboardist, and we just thought it would be nice to kind of go back to that. My favorite bands of all time are 2 guitar player bands, so we just thought that it would be a little more organic, a little less keyboardy if we had more guitar, less keyboards. So that's where the idea came from.
Yeah. We'll get back to that a little bit, but speaking of keyboards, so you always had a guy keyboard player. Was there a decision that we're going to make the keyboard player a guy?
No, it wasn't a band member. So, we just got the most qualified person we could find and who, kind of fit into the touring scenario with us. And it just happened to be guys. We would have hired a girl if, the right one came along.
Yeah, but maybe, like you say, maybe it was good to separate the image, because they weren't a member of the band; they were sort of off stage.
Right. Well, they were visible, but definitely not as visible as the rest of us.
Right. And was it consistent back then? Did you have one person that you used, or was it changing?
It changed a couple of times. We had Michael Alemania for a while, and then we had John Thomas. But they were both long lasting.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good for them. I'm sure it's a good gig, and you don't have the same.
We abused them.
Yeah, and so I got to ask you, and this is another question that you probably get asked all the time. But so you're a all-female band touring out with these guys at a time when everything is insane and guys are looking for groupies and people are crazy. Were you guys single at the time? Were you in relationships? What was it like for you?
Well, we had varying. Let me think. Jan was single. Roxy had a boyfriend, who was the singer from Madam X, the band that she was in before.
Right.
I got married during that time period, and Cher was married at first, and then she went through a divorce. So it was all kinds of different. We were all different.
Yeah. Were you able to have fun? Even
Of course. Yeah. I mean, you can have fun without, being bad to your spouse.
right.
Oh,
I didn't even. Yeah, I'm not sure I even meant that, but that's which is why you join a band with your spouse. But we'll
yeah,
get.
right. No, we really had we had a great time. I mean, we were focused on what we were going to do on stage. That was the most important thing, was to, put on great shows. So we had fun when time allowed. There was moments where, we had like 22 nights in a row and things like that. So I just try to get sleep most of the time. But then, when we would have a couple days off or breaks in between shows, then we'd party. We'd have fun.
Yeah. Now, I was reading that you were working pretty much through most of your career. You did when Vixen started. Were you still working? Like a real job?
Yeah. Actually, Roxy and I were working for JB Player Guitars. Roxy can sell, ice to Eskimos. She can sell anything. So she was selling guitars, and I was working on guitars. Yeah. So yeah, I've always worked.
At what point do you go, okay, I think this Vixen thing's going to work out. I can leave my regular job.
I'm gonna quit my day job. Well, obviously our tour schedule didn't allow for anything but playing and touring. So that was the end of the day job for a while.
Right. Well, because, I interviewed Johnny Kelly, who's the drummer for Typo Negative, and he said that those guys, they didn't really like to tour. Peter Steele worked for the Parks Department, like while they were famous. He would just go and do his job and go out, take a few weeks off and go back to work, and had a whole, had his holiday pay. And, so it's an interesting decision. Right. When do I go? And okay, I can do this. So 1992, you guys decide to call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how that happens.
Oh, that's another. It's foggy there too. I think that we were kind of in a 2-and-2 situation. Cher and I kind of had we had been writing together, and we had a certain type of thing that we wanted to do, and I think Roxy and Jan had different things they wanted to do, so we ended up just disagreeing on how to proceed. So yeah, we just decided to call it quits. I mean, I think we all knew that, there was a possibility we could always get back together. We could always, it wasn't necessarily the end forever, but yeah, we called it quits.
Was there even talk of another record at the time? Was there label interest, or was it one of these things where it wasn't worth trying?
Well, our manager had said, yes, there's label interest, if you guys want to try to make another record. And there was a little bit, yeah, I mean, everybody kind of tried to compromise, or, maybe we can do this, we can do that. I think we all kind of tossed around everything that we could. And then just, yeah, eventually it was like, it's not going to work.
I talk to a lot of dysfunctional bands. Do you think that maybe having some management or somebody who was in the middle maybe could have helped a little bit? Because it sounds like your differences could have been solved, but when you have the 4 people trying it themselves and you have a split now, it seems like it's hard to come to that agreement.
Well, honestly, I think our manager didn't know what the hell to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think he didn't know how to make it work. I think he tried here and there, trying to kind of figure out what was going on and how he could help, get it back together. But I maybe he could have done more. I don't know. It's easy to blame somebody else for, what went wrong. But I don't. At that point, even if we did make another record, I don't think it would have done anything because of the climate at the time.
I think you're right. I think a lot of the bands who put those a lot of bands were at that point on a 3rd record. Some of those records got lost in the shuffle. Some of those records weren't the best records. And so sometimes it was better to call it a day. So tell me now, what do you go and do? Because it's going to be a lot of years before Tangerine comes out. So let me know what happens next for you personally.
Nothing. Just kind of, figuring out what to do next. Cher and I actually worked on a bunch of songs together, and we did a project together and put together a little band. We did that for a while. We got management. It was going okay, and then it just kind of fell apart. That didn't happen. I worked on possible solo stuff for a while. I recorded a few things. Just wasn't really feeling right at the time. So it's time to figure out something else to do with your life. So, I got a job, ended up going back to school, doing the dental hygiene thing. And music was kind of on the back burner. And there, it was kind of a painful situation. It's like anybody can imagine. You're president of the bank one day and then you're fired and you have nothing to do. I mean, it's the same. It was a hard time. It was very sort of, I don't want to say depressing because, I never was really depressed. I always had music. I always enjoyed it. But it was kind of rough to take.
I'm sure. Yeah, and so now you're working, you're a dental hygienist. Do people ever recognize you?
Yeah, once in a while.
Which has got to be weird for you.
Well, right now, of course, they don't because I'm wearing 2 masks. I wear loops, so I look like Mr. Magoo. and then I wear a face shield too. So I look like some sort of, swamp creature or something. Wow. So no one really recognizes me now. But yeah, there was a time when occasionally somebody would come in, and usually though it was that they knew beforehand. They're like, "Are you the one that was in Vixen?"
Yeah, I'm sure it gets around fast, and people say, "Hey, the woman in my office, she was in this band, Vixen," and things like that. And people love to brag that they know somebody who was in something. But at least you were smart enough to work.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so let's jump ahead to Tangerine, which is '98. Now, this is a totally different sounding Vixen record, and so tell me, because there's some controversy with this record, but so you tell me how you came about.
Roxy got in touch with me and said, "I'm working with this guitar player, and I think you guys would really have a chemistry." She lives on Long Island. I was living in Connecticut. So she said, "Why don't you go meet her and just hang out? Listen to some songs. She'll play you some of her songs. If you have any ideas, play her some of yours." So I drove out to Long Island, met Gina Style, and we clicked immediately. We started writing, and we didn't really even know what it was for. And then, we would send stuff to Roxy and she'd play drums on it, send it back. And so we were just kind of going along. We really didn't know what we were going to do. And then at one point, somebody approached us and said, why don't you guys do a Vixen record? So we reached out to Cher and Jan, and neither of them were interested in doing it. so we put it out as Vixen, which in hindsight probably wasn't the right thing to do because it didn't sound like Vixen. But for me personally, there was a lot of great therapeutic lyrics on that album for me. I got out a lot of much needed stuff. And I think it's some of the best lyrics I've ever written on that album. And, you know, Gina's really interesting musician. And I think we wrote some interesting stuff. It's kind of, it didn't come out like we wanted it to. The recording process got kind of screwy and some of the tracks didn't sound right. And we had some problems on it, but all in all, at the end of the day, I thought it was something cool and interesting.
Yeah.
But it didn't sound like Vixen. So a lot of Vixen fans were like, ew, it sounds like grunge. And there were some, you know, some elements of that in there. But, you know, there was still a lot of melody and a lot of kind of Vixen-ish stuff.
So Jan, I believe, tries, and it's hard, you know, it's difficult. Jan's passed away, so we're talking about somebody who's, you know, obviously not here, but she didn't like that you were using the name. I think she claims that you didn't ask her, but she's not here to give her side, and so she sues you guys. Did she contact you first, or you just get hit out of the blue with a lawsuit?
We just got hit out of the blue with a lawsuit. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff happened there too. Like they claimed that I was served and I wasn't. I swear to God, nobody served me. So I didn't know anything about it for months. And then I got notices that, you know, I failed to appear or whatever. So I didn't want to hire a lawyer. I didn't want to deal with any of that. I just called her lawyer and said, let's get rid of this. So we did.
Yeah, that's
moved on.
That's what I was wondering. And sometimes that's the easiest way. You know, what do you want to be tied up forever?
And bickering and fighting over stuff that it just really didn't matter at that point. I'm like, find out what she wants, present it to me, and let's get it done and move on.
And only lawyers win in these situations. You know, they'll make money, and you guys have this long, bitter fight on your hands. And I'm sure when that record was made, somebody says, "Listen, we'll sell more records if we call it Vixen," and that happens. You know,
of course.
Yeah. And okay, and so now at this point, where it gets even stranger to me is Jan then forms her own Vixen, right?
Right.
And so, with this whole legal thing, does Jan now become the sole owner of the name Vixen?
Yes.
And so that's part of your settlement then. You guys go away and she's Vixen.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably this is tricky, but it's probably a tough decision for all of you guys, and maybe not even the best decision, other than you don't want to spend your time and money fighting.
Yeah, and in my opinion, in a situation like that, I don't guess that's the second time I've done that. Just walked away and went, okay, you guys carry on, whatever. You know, if they don't want me in the situation, I'm not going to hold anybody up. You know, I did my thing in Vixen. I made my mark in Vixen. And if the time is right and it all works out and I can be part of it again, great. But if not, go ahead, do your thing. It just doesn't make sense to me to hold up the name or have multiple people having the name and have 5 versions of Vixen out there or things like that. That just doesn't. So I figured if it works out that I'm in Vixen again, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too.
And was it difficult for you to see a band going out there called Vixen that had 3 people who had nothing to do with the success of Vixen?
Not really. You know, at that point, I think, you know, I was fine with Jan being happy, being out there doing Vixen again. I mean, she did start the band.
Yeah.
You know, she was the founding member. And so, no, I was okay with it.
Yeah, and you were back to working, and at that point, Cher didn't seem to have any interest in doing Vixen again, as well.
Right. She was working with her husband, and she was doing Bubble, and she had other things going that, she was very motivated to keep going.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Cher's husband, current husband, is Bam from Dogs to More, and yeah, they had a band Bubble for a lot of years. And I think that for her and maybe for you also, the idea of going back to Vixen at times didn't seem like something, that was really going to happen. But then it does happen. In 2001, you guys do a short reunion, and this is something that I've got to ask you about. So you guys go on a tour. And what was that tour, and who was on it? You're trying to forget.
I think it was called the Voices of Metal Tour. And I think it was Vince Neil, Slatter, and us.
Mm-hmm. And so you go out, and so there's all kinds of different reports. One of the reports is that Jan asked you to leave halfway through. True?
Not exactly, but kind of.
So what went wrong?
Well, I had a huge blowout with Jan's manager. Huge. Like, people who know me will know it takes a lot for me to have a screaming match. I just don't go there. It just doesn't, I never get that worked up. I was screaming at this guy on the phone for an hour. I've never had somebody piss me off that bad in my entire life. He was so condescending to me. I was like, who do you think you are talking to me like that? I was so mad. And I'm not an egomaniac either. So I don't have that, like, don't you know who you're talking to? I mean, this guy pissed me off. So, yeah. It boiled down to him saying, well, yeah, if you want to finish this tour, you'll have to play for free. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So, yeah, I was pretty much asked to either leave or sing without pay.
And at this point, you guys were probably employees, right?
Probably what?
Employees. If Jan controls the name,
yes.
You guys are working.
Yes.
And there's no reason to work for free when it's not, there's no reason to work for free anyway.
That is absolutely the 100% truth of it. Yep. It's like, what do I get out of it?
It's no longer your brand.
I've spent half my life playing for free because I had a stake in it. I had a vested interest. Now I don't. No, hell no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. And so you leave. Does Roxy leave also?
I think, yeah, Roxy ended up leaving too. I think they tried to talk her into staying, but I think she was kind of like, well, what's the point?
And when these things kind of happen, where bands are fighting on the road, and there's any talk of changing the pay, Roxy probably goes, this is a sinking ship and I'm getting off. Obviously, it would seem things are going bad.
I can't speak for her because I really don't know what she was thinking or going through. I really don't. I mean, obviously we had a little bit of contact, but I don't know what her conversations with them were, with Jan or with the manager. I really don't know. You'd have to ask her, but yeah, she ended up leaving too.
Yeah. And Jan did bring in 3 other players and continued to play as Vixen. So let's fast forward ahead. 2004 VH1 Bands Reunited comes along.
Yeah.
Now, this show is interesting, and it also seems a little bit of a fix to me at times. And so so first of all, for those who may not remember this, there's always people watching things who haven't seen it. The premise is this host of VH1 is going to go out and he's going to reunite bands that haven't played together in a long time and see if they will agree to do it. And it's an ambush thing. It was cheaters for rock bands. And it's silly to watch these crews. Nowadays, you can film the whole show with one camera and a one line, but 20 guys come running in. And you would think this is the biggest news, reuniting Vixen. You think this is going to be the biggest thing ever. And they sort of portray it as the band Vixen hasn't played together in, something 20 years, you know, something crazy. And
Right.
and maybe the 4 original members hadn't, but they sort of omitted that 3 years ago you guys had another nasty breakup. You know, there was several. So the thing that shocks me about that show is that they go to Jan first and she says, yeah, I'm in. I wouldn't agree to do anything unless I knew who else was in first. And you seem to ask that. But so my question to you
Totally
about,
did.
yeah, my question is, were you really surprised when they showed up?
Absolutely 100%. I had no idea.
So
Roxy helped them set it up, and she did a good job. I was expecting to have lunch with Roxy.
Gotcha. And you did know the show though, so when you see them, you know.
Yes,
Understand.
I knew what was happening the minute I saw, like you said, this giant crew with the giant fuzzy microphone coming around the corner. Yeah, I knew what was happening. But yeah, I was completely shocked, and I thought that's why I asked. I'm like, well, is Jan gonna do it? And they said, yeah. Is Cher gonna do it? Yeah. It's like, crap, I'm gonna be the lone holdout. Now I have to say yes.
They must have thought that you were the difficult one. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, to get to do it, because that's what you want to get to the person last and go, everyone else is in, so now it's up to you.
So now you're gonna be the asshole that's gonna blow the whole thing if you don't say yes. Yeah, and you know, but I had a lot of reasons to not want to do it. I had a 1-year-old. He was running around like crazy, and I had a lot going on. So yeah, it was. I'm glad I did it. It was fun.
And so, and I think it brings some closure too. So you guys go in. How many songs did you actually play?
I don't remember.
But
Probably
it wasn't a concert. It was
no. It was about a half an hour. I think maybe 5 or 6 songs.
Is it awkward to be in a room with Jan, especially because you just came off? Well, you went off a litigation, then you get a fight on the middle of a tour. So what is that like?
Surprisingly, it wasn't. We kind of picked up. We had a lot of common friends. So we started talking about, showing pictures. Oh yeah, remember this guy? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. We just started in where we left off. It wasn't, they tried to paint the picture of awkwardness by, editing, but it
Sure.
really wasn't that bad. It was nice, actually.
So this ends. The label re-releases the first 2 records. It's a great business thing for everybody.
Mhm.
Is there talk that Vixen is going to do something with that 4 lineup?
Maybe very little, not a lot.
Where did things fall off?
Well, I think we maybe had 1 or 2 conversations about it, and I think Cher was still not interested.
Mhm.
And I wasn't terribly interested. I think, Roxy's always ready to go. So I think she was up for it. And Jan, I think she was happy and committed to her current members. So yeah, it didn't happen.
Yeah, which is strange. Maybe she feels like, well, I can still keep the lion's share if I keep my band. But she might have got more interest with the original 4. But then again, maybe you guys wouldn't have been able to get along. Maybe some of those old problems would have reared their heads.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at that point, everybody was sort of doing their own thing, and it just wasn't. I don't think it felt right to anybody actually at that point.
Mm-hmm. So but at some point we get to JSRG, which is Janet, Cher, Roxy, and Gina.
Right.
And essentially, to somebody on the outside, myself included, this is a way more legitimate Vixen than the band that's calling themselves Vixen.
Right. That's kind of, of course we wanted Jan to do Vixen, and she wasn't ready to do it at that time. So we were like, okay, well, the 3 of us want to do this, want to work together. So, it was like, okay, well, we'll do a Vixen cover band. we'll be the best Vixen cover band on the planet.
Mhm.
So yeah, we did that for a while.
Qualified.
And the whole time, of course, people were talking to Jan and saying, you know, wouldn't it be great if you guys all, the original four, got together again? And eventually, I think her band members were really cool about it too. I think they were like, well, maybe you should, you know, maybe it'd be a really good thing for you. So yeah, we started talking about it. We were ready to go. Everybody was getting excited and talking a lot more than usual and laughing, and, you know, really, it was a great time right then. And then we got a call from Jan saying, well, don't announce this yet because I'm having a little stomach problem or something. I gotta get it taken care of first. Which was like, why would you not want to announce that unless if it's not something serious?
Right.
And of course, it turns out it was. So
Yeah. So
that was terrible.
yeah. So Jan had cancer, and it was fairly fast from her diagnosis, right?
Crazy fast. Yeah. None of us were. And there were some good signs going on. You know, she was like, yeah, I was out riding my bike today. I'm feeling pretty good. And literally a couple weeks after that, she was gone. So, you know, I think it was one of those cases where, you know, they had to do chemo because it was the last resort. But I think that did her in.
Yeah. And it must have been a good thing for you, though, to have at least been on good terms with her at that time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That, I can't even tell you how happy I am that at least we were talking again. We were friends again. We were reminiscing, and a lot was forgiven and a lot was put to rest. So that's probably a terrible way to put it. I didn't mean to put it like that, but
No,
you know what I'm saying? A lot. We definitely got through a lot of our issues, and I'm so grateful that we at least got to do that. And we at least, even though we never made it to the stage, we were Vixen again. We were that again. And it was wonderful and then very tragic, but I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, and to have that kind of closure for her as well. I think, you know, you're going through this situation. No one could understand what it feels like. Sometimes to close up some of these open wounds is something that I'm sure goes a long way. So, okay, so at this point, obviously now it makes no sense to not call yourself Vixen. You guys are going to continue making music. And so you continue, except JSRG becomes Vixen.
Right. We talked to everyone that we could that was close to Jan and said, well, what do you think she would want us to do?
Mm-hmm.
And the overwhelming consensus was go out and play those songs. People will think of her. People will remember her, you know, go do it. So
is there any legality to this? Do you have to go to her estate or something?
Not really. We spoke to a few people and there really wasn't anybody that was going to press any kind of legal issue at that point.
Yeah. And so at that point you registered the name or whatever it is, and you build up the corporation again. You know, Vixen's a different working entity. So you do that, and it's doing well. Vixen was back and popular, and people really enjoyed it. And I think that people who go to these nostalgia type festivals and shows want to see as many original people as they can. Obviously, Jan was no longer alive, so couldn't be there, and so you're seeing the closest thing. And I think that you guys had songs that people really loved. And I think, even like I said, people like me who might have been seeing something else go, wow, I missed out on something. And so was it fun? Because it's a different world now. Now you're doing fly dates. What was that like at that time?
Oh, it was great. You know, I mean, we were all just so grateful that, you know, we had the opportunity to do these shows, and then there were these cruises that, you know, we could go on and do. And I mean, those were great because I got to see a lot of bands that I had never seen back in the day because we
Right.
were busy touring. So all of a sudden I was seeing bands I hadn't seen and was really enjoying seeing. And yeah, we were really grateful to just be out playing those songs and having fun.
Yeah, and you know, your mom, your son is a little bit older, and so he was able to come out and see you play a little bit, and you know, get a little vacation as well.
Yeah, yeah. And he, you know, he was old enough to, you know, not need mom so much. He was like, yeah, go ahead and go, you know, go have fun. So yeah. And he did come to some shows, and I took him on a couple of the cruises. So I think he felt pretty lucky to be out there.
It's a cool experience, you know. It's much cooler to say your mom is the traveling rock star than, you know, my mom, the dental hygienist. You know, even though one might pay the bills better.
Right. Right.
But so okay, so this, I believe, I'm going to say this is 2017. Is that right? Your first solo record. I think that's right.
Oh yeah, yeah. 2017.
And
Correct.
so you're still in Vixen when you make this record.
I am. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what goes in. Was Vixen planning on making a record?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Everything's all goofed up. Yeah, we were working on material, and I love writing with Gina. So we were working on a lot of stuff, and everybody was. We were kind of sending ideas back and forth. We got together a few times at a studio in Detroit, recorded a few things, and we were kind of cruising along. And then Gina was let go, and that kind of blew my buzz a little bit.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because I found that to be a little strange.
Yeah.
Suddenly she was gone, and there was another guitar player. So tell me, what was the decision about letting her go?
Well, I think that there was a consensus that I don't like talking about this. I got to tell you, because I didn't agree. So it was difficult for me to see her go. And I still love working with her, and we're talking again, and that's a whole other scenario. But my dog is going nuts. Can you hear that?
I can tell. Yeah, she doesn't like the decision either.
Yeah, she's mad. Anyway, I'm all distracted now. Okay, so
So Cher and Roxy obviously have some reason why they think that Gina should be replaced. Is it a personality issue? Is it a musical issue?
I think it was a combination of things, and I think they were saying they wanted to go back to more of a traditional Vixen sound, which I think Gina could do that anyway. But yeah, I'm done talking about that.
Yeah, I get it.
If you don't mind, let's next.
Yeah, no, totally. But this does factor into your decision, I believe, because you make this solo record.
Absolutely. One more thing. I don't want people to think that I don't like Britt and that I didn't like working with Britt, because that is not true either. Britt's fabulous. Love her to death. Great guitar player. Very talented. Very sweet. I just didn't want to see Gina go. Just to clear that up.
Yeah, and I think that's a
Love
good point. Britt didn't do anything. She stepped in and did a job, and it's a good player.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, okay, so obviously now you have a little bit of tensions. Maybe this Vixen record is not getting done, and you decide to make a solo record. Does that bother the other girls? Women? You're not allowed to say girls anymore.
I think maybe a little bit. I think their problem is that I didn't really discuss it with them, and I didn't really warn them. They didn't really know I was doing that. But you know, it was kind of an accident. Justin and I just started working together, and while they were looking for guitar players and replacing Gina and stuff, I was working with Justin and we got on a roll. It really wasn't on purpose. It just happened. You know, we had recently gotten married. And we bought a house, set up a studio, and Justin was working by himself, and I just heard something I liked. I came down, we started working it out, came up with a song, and then we were on a roll. And it just, before we knew it, we had 10 songs, we were ready to release it. So I just kind of announced it on my Facebook page, and I think they were shocked. I probably should have said something to them, but you know, everybody does other things, and it's not always, you know, nobody's always asking me if they can do stuff. Roxy does Madam X, and, you know, Cher does her stuff with Bam, and other people do other things. So I didn't think it was a big deal. And it was just a side project. And, but it created a little bit of something, not terrible. They were fairly supportive.
Yeah, I can imagine. Before we get into your leaving Vixen yet again, I want to mention that these are really great albums, and you can buy them in the description. We'll have links to them, but these are really great records. And if you're a Vixen fan, you will love these records. You know, this is not. It's very hard to sell an album these days, and get people to pay for music is hard. But for people who like that sound and like big hooks and want to hear a good pop hard rock song, your albums deliver. Everyone, and your husband as well is a great guitar player and adds this great chemistry to it. So I would think in my mind that maybe they're thinking these should have been Vixen songs. I'm an outside person, I have no idea, but I have a feeling they probably go, we probably could have marketed this.
I really don't know. It wasn't ever, and nothing like that was ever said to me. So I don't know. Maybe a few of them, and a few of them probably. The first album, I was still in Vixen, so I really wasn't going for any kind of Vixen sound.
Right.
That we were just, Justin was doing his thing. We were just, it was the way our chemistry was what came out. So it wasn't, definitely wasn't an attempt,
of course,
to take away anything from Vixen, for sure.
What makes you decide, I've had enough? We know Gina being fired is part of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of personal things, not with them, but in my life. You know, Justin and I, between the two of us, we have 3 kids. Nobody in Vixen has kids. There was a lot of, you know, stuff that I could only contribute so much and do everything else that's going on in my life. And a lot of people, you know, they're saying right now, well, you can do your solo stuff, but that's Justin and I, we live together. We're here together every day. So for us to, you know, sneak down in the basement and record a couple songs, it doesn't take that much time. So, yeah, it was just, I was very stressed, and there was some conflicts between, you know, if I was playing a gig somewhere, then, you know, Vixen couldn't play there within a certain amount of time. Those booking, all kinds of things like that, it all got very stressful. And it got to the point where I couldn't even see straight. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Something has to go. And so I made the decision to do that, which in hindsight, I mean, sure, I miss them, but it was definitely, I don't regret it. It was definitely the right thing to do. My life is good. Everything's in balance. I feel good. I'm not stressed. So yeah, that's that.
Well, the cliche goes that a band is like a marriage. And at this point, you are in a band with someone you're married to. And so I think obviously that's going to take precedent. You also make your own decisions, that you guys aren't, you know, you're not voting, that you don't have that long history, and you can do things the way you want to do. And it is difficult these days. This is not like you're turning down millions of dollars, and, you know, and no disrespect to Vixen, but it's not that many shows. And I think you have to be happy.
Yeah, I mean, people were saying that, like, oh, I can't believe she gave all that up. And you're right. It's not like I was giving up a 6 figures a year bunch pile of cash, you know.
You gave up 20 flights to Bozeman, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there was it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't a huge financial decision to make. It was more of a sad not to be part of that anymore kind of decision. That's what kept me being a part of it. But it's been much better for my life in general. So
You guys took the high road, though. No one got into name calling, and it seemed a very amicable thing.
oh yeah, there was no reason to get mud flinging or anything. And I didn't have any desire to fight over the name or anything like that too. So that was a bullet that we all got to dodge, was just, you guys go ahead, I'll go my way, we'll part as friends, and onward we go.
Do you think that there would be a reason to ever do it again?
Well, I'm a never say never kind of person. I mean, I can't imagine that happening, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not on the table right now.
No.
They're traveling. When the time comes, they'll be back to traveling. And you're doing your thing. And so, and yes, and if your career says anything, that never say never is definitely a big factor. We got to talk.
I mean, there's all these bands like, we're breaking up and we're never going to get back together. And then 2 years later, they're back together. So, I mean, what's the point? You don't know what's going on.
And you don't want to be the one who looks foolish saying, I would never do it. And
I
then
would never do that. And then there you are doing it.
on stage. Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about this. This record came out in 2020. So this is the first record that you guys have branded together, sort of as a duo. This is Gardner James. So this is Janet and her husband, Justin James. And again, this is a great record and it's really fun. And if you like hard rock music and you like big hooks, like I said, and catchy songs that will stay in your head, here's a good record for you, and something fresh to listen to. So obviously, promotion for this record gets derailed. I mean, what happens? What do you do?
Well, I mean, we made it during the pandemic, so we kind of knew we weren't going to be able to go out and, well, we didn't know how long it would take to be able to go out and play, but we made videos. We did what we could, It's like, well, we obviously can't go out and play to promote it. So, we made 4 videos.
I was going to say, I saw the videos and they're good quality videos, and it makes it kind of a good way to get to hear this music, because everyone's getting their music in different ways now. So if you go on YouTube, you can check out the videos for these songs.
Yeah, it was another creative outlet too, was doing those videos at home. It's like, we didn't know how to edit videos and stuff. So we're learning as we go. And it ended up being kind of fun. We bought a green screen and we didn't know how to use that. And it was goofy, but it was good use of time because we couldn't play.
That's a big thing. There are people who are using this time, like you said, for good things. It's a great time to learn how to do it all yourself and different skills and get your music out. And there are people who are looking for things to listen to while they're home. You guys were touring overseas right before the pandemic.
We were in Australia. If we had literally waited one more day, we wouldn't have made it home. So it was just in the nick of time. I mean, it worked out great too, because we ended on a very high note. That was so much fun. We had such a great time in Australia. And then of course we got home and the world was canceled.
Yeah.
But I'm just really glad we played a lot of dates in the beginning of 2020. So we got in a lot before it happened.
Well, and I want to go back for a second. I believe 2018, you're playing the Whiskey in Los Angeles, and we find out that you have I hope I get this right, subdural hematoma. You needed brain surgery.
Yeah. Woo, fun times.
It's insane. So tell me what happened.
Well, I don't really know exactly what happened. We played the whiskey. I woke up the next day. We were on the West Coast and we live on the East Coast. And I got a phone call from one of my son's teachers, and it was during school hours, which of course was like 5:30 in the morning in California. So I answered the phone and I was kind of out of it. And whatever it was, I fixed it. And then I remember sitting up and I just felt really weird. And then I stood up and then all of a sudden I felt like my head was going to explode. And so I took some Advil and then immediately went in and started throwing up. And then I couldn't feel my hands. And then all hell broke loose. And so I finally said to Justin, this isn't just a normal headache. We need to call 911 now. Something is seriously wrong with me. So we were supposed to play Vegas that night.
Right.
Actually. We were supposed to travel to Vegas, and yeah, so the ambulance came and I remember being wheeled out in the wheelchair, and then I don't remember anything until I got to the hospital, and then a bunch of tests. And then the surgeon said, we need to do surgery on you right now. He explained what it was that was happening to me and said, we can't wait. We got to do it now. So in I went.
Yeah. So you had a hematoma that was putting pressure on your brain.
Correct. It wasn't in my brain. The blood wasn't going into my brain. It was in the layer on the outside of it. So as it grew and blood was still gushing into there, it squished my brain out of place. It was taking up a quarter of my brain space. So of course my brain didn't like that very much. So that's when everything started to go wrong. And then that was an ugly recovery. I'm one of those people who I cannot take any kind of opiates at all. I just get sick. So the only other thing I was allowed to take was Tylenol.
Mm.
And the pain radiating from this side of my head, I can't even explain it. So all I wanted to do was sleep because it was the only time I wasn't in pain. So, I was putting on ice packs. Justin was amazing, by the way. He took such good care of me. He would let me sleep and then he'd wake me up and make sure I was okay. And then once he knew I was okay, go back to sleep. And everybody was great, actually. We had friends stepping up and bringing us food. And it was just amazing how everybody reacted to it. But yeah, it took a while and it was scary because I didn't really know if I was going to recover totally. I didn't know if I was going to have any lasting effects.
I mean, they went through your skull. You have a steel plate in your head.
Yes, I have a plate and screws and bumps and yeah. Very weird. I'm a true metalhead. That's my joke of the whole thing. I'm literally a metalhead.
But now, do they think is it solved for now?
Yeah, it's probably solved forever.
Great. Yeah.
Well, I went through a bunch of testing to find out what, they said maybe you have some sort of bleeding disorder. It started to bleed a little and then didn't stop. Why didn't it stop? So I literally got tested for everything and they couldn't find anything.
Yeah, which is good. That's the news you want. You don't want to find anything.
But I mean, it's good news, bad news, because I don't know how to prevent it from happening because I don't know how and why it happened. But it is good news that there's no obvious reason why it happened. We think maybe, Justin and I smacked heads doing a video that was like a week before we left. And so they think maybe it just slowly bled into my head.
Mm.
And then like a week later, that's when it got so bad that it was time to fix it. Yeah,
well, and thankfully they caught it in time, because what a scary thing. Imagine you were on a plane or
well, and imagine that my son's teacher didn't call me.
Right.
I mean, I could have just kept sleeping and not woken up. Yep. Who knows?
That early, especially.
It saved my life.
Yeah. Well, that's teachers are heroes, right? So
yeah, they are, more ways than one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Janet, I really want to thank you for spending some time with me, wasting some time with me. it's a great story. I know some of these details are like, it's like therapy. I'm telling these stories, 20 years later again, but I think that people really I think people like to hear these things about bands that they watch. And then, there's so many rumors out there. And I find it now, it's funny, is you have to start researching all over again because there's 20 different versions of every story.
Justin texted me one the other day that was hilarious. It was saying that I had like a shoe business that I sold for like $5 million or something. Just this nonsense. Like, where do they get this stuff? Like that? Yeah, my net worth is like $10 million because I sold my shoe company.
Yeah, the net worth one is definitely funny. Everybody's. It's insane. But I'm glad you were here today. And I want to again mention that in the description, I've got links to all of Janet's records and Synergy 2020, especially. You guys can give that a listen and check out the YouTube videos. Is there anywhere else that people can check you out? Your website, Janet?
Yeah, we have a website. I think it's just janetgardnermusic.com. And, Facebook, of course, we have a Facebook page, Instagram, and YouTube. That's about it.
Yeah, I'll link all that. So people who are watching, go check out more of that. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yes, we're going to be out there soon. Thank you so much, Jason. So nice to see you.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, take care.
You too.